only in whispers. A dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends. A place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view. But when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Good evening and welcome to the Sunday edition of Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Sitting across the board from me, Mr. Tim Dennis. Good evening, Tim.
Good evening.
Great show last night, huh?
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. We had,
it was a lot of fun.
Of course, we had Scotty Roberts, the tarot reader, in the studio live with us. We had Tiffany Johnson, the medium, was in the studio with us live. Of course, Nicole Remini joined us for the night, and she was hanging out watching them do their little mystical ways over there.
The mystical, magical things.
Yeah, so we had a good time. A lot of great callers. Thank you very much for spending time. We're going to have those guys back on throughout the months. We'll have Scotty on one night, Tiff on another, so that way you guys can get more shots at readings. And we're going to also be working with some of the other big names out in the field of mediumship. So I'm working on getting the Perrys, our good friends Michael and Marty Perry, on the line with us.
Yeah, they've appeared on A&E's Paranormal State.
Yeah.
And are working around the country.
Very cool, huh?
Like Nicole says, the gypsies.
Yeah, the gypsies. So they're going to be out there. We're going to hopefully have them coming up on an upcoming show. Hey, we got some exciting news, Tim.
Yeah?
For the listeners out there, let's go ahead and bring up our first guest, and he's going to be with us for about 5-6 minutes here, and coming to us from the Travel Channel's hit new series. It'll be coming out October 17th. We have Zak Bagans, who is the star of Ghost Adventures. Good evening.
How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks a lot for joining us here, Zak. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Now, it kicks off October 17th, right?
Yeah, October 17th is our premiere for our brand new series. We're going to be having 8 episodes, and this first premiere, you will not want to miss this premiere. We've filmed about 6 locations. We'll be heading overseas next week or actually the end of this week, film our 7th episode, so we're almost done with filming, but these investigations have been nothing short of extreme. And this premiere that we're going to be airing, we've actually had to call the help of an old bishop to help us out with this one.
Really?
So it was a bit extreme.
Well, let me ask you this, Zak. Now,
on the date of the premiere, also we'll be showing to open up the series. We'll be showing our documentary that's been airing last year on the Sci-Fi Channel. That will serve as our opener for the series, and the show will air at 10 p.m.
Great, and that will be on the Travel Channel, so people can check their local listings and guides for that.
You got it.
We'll remind people as we get a little bit closer. Now, the reason we wanted to have you on the show, of course, that's excellent news. And for people that missed it, Ghost Adventures, they did a 2-hour special on Sci-Fi Channel where Zak, Nick, Aaron went out to the Goldfield Hotel to Virginia City, Nevada, and they did investigations there. And you guys got some just crazy, I still think, and I don't know, Tim, we've watched a lot of these paranormal shows. Mm-hmm. The evidence you guys got in that is still by far one of the best, I think, paranormal pieces of evidence that they've aired on TV so far.
Yeah, that's really what fueled us to keep going with this. And we just kept going. We kept investigating. And at the time of that documentary, we never labeled ourselves as professional paranormal investigators that have been investigating for so many years. We were curious about this after an experience, and that's what kind of triggered us to go out to Nevada and all these haunted towns and create this documentary. And when we got the evidence, we put it together. And like I said, we were very new to paranormal investigating. But 3 years later, you have us every single day researching everything we can with paranormal. We've added a complete line of new scientific equipment to our arsenal of equipment that we're conducting these investigations. And the entire thing is where we're being locked down now. We're actually doing some investigations at some of the most darkest places out there because we feel, we can get a lot of evidence out there if there's some dark entities that are being very active to some of the living. And some of these living we do interview before our investigations, which we call it a complete investigation. So we just don't go there and do an investigation overnight. We like to find people and interview them. We find the history and the dark history all about these locations.
Cool.
That's what's included in this new series. And, October 17th, 10 o'clock, it'll premiere. After that, it'll air every Friday at 9 p.m. And then it'll do some replays during the week as well.
Now, the other reason that we have Zach on the line with us is we have some exciting news. And Tim, we've been doing events now for the last 2 years with our friends from the Ghost Hunters, Chris Fleming from Dead Famous, Patrick Burns from Haunting Evidence.
Yep.
And I've been hired by Zach and his crew to come out. We went out to the Virginia City event. We went out to the Goldfield Hotel event. We got to ghost hunt with the guys and kind of MC for them. And it just worked out so well that now the show's kicking off. We've decided to partner up. We're going to do an event, and it is available now. You can go and check it out on our websites at darknessevents.com, or you can go to darknessradio.com, and over on the side of the screen you will see the new paranormal events coming up. Click it. We're going to be going with Zach, Nick, and Aaron from the Ghost Adventures. You're going to get the whole Ghost Adventures crew as we go to haunted Rolling Hills Sanatorium out in East Bethany, New York. That's about 35 miles east of Buffalo, New York. We're going out there November 13th through the 16th, and you get to join not only Zach, Nick, and Aaron, but we've got a great little lineup of speakers. Tim and I, of course, will be out there hosting it. We've got EVP specialists, and these are our guests in the second hour tonight on our show, Mark and Debbie Constantino. And they're going to actually share tonight, Zach, with us some EVP they got with us when we were just out there doing investigations with this summer with them at Rolling Hills. So I think that's going to be fun. We also have ITC specialist Bill Chappell. He's a paranormal tech expert and inventor, and he's going to show us some of the best new items coming out for paranormal investigating. We have the demonologist and exorcist Archbishop James Long joining us. Paranormal investigator and researcher, the ghost cop Stacy Jones will be on hand. It's 3 filled nights of activity. You get 2 nights to investigate, 2 days of amazing presentations. We have these up on the site right now, so you can go check it out. You get a chance to meet with the guys, autographs, get your picture taken with them. First night, we're just going to all kind of hang out and have some fun. There'll be a fundraiser auction for Rolling Hills Restoration Fund. You get a chance to meet with everybody and just hang out. And then the next 2 days are full of great paranormal lectures, and then you get to investigate. And this is kind of new, Zach. We've opened this up for you and your crew, because you guys are kind of the extreme new ghost hunters out there. What we're going to do, Tim, I don't even know if you know this yet, the ghost hunting starts at about 10:30 at night for the first group. They'll get to ghost hunt until about 2:30 in the morning, and then from 2:30 on, the entire group is allowed to come over and ghost hunt until 6:30 in the morning. So everybody gets to investigate both nights. The second night, the second group gets to go from 10:30 to 2:30. From 2:30 on, the entire group is allowed to come over and ghost hunt as well. So you get the entire place to yourself for 2 nights to investigate. With the celebrities will be hanging out there and being a part of it and investigating with you as well. And you're going to have information up on your site.
Yeah, we already do, and we just launched a new site, ghostadventurescrew.com, and you can go on there and get some more information. We actually just posted a forum to where you can actually talk about some of our past events where both of you guys were there with us at Goldfield and over at Virginia City. But one thing I just want to say real quick, why I love doing these events so much, these live events, is so a lot of people that kind of watch this on TV and stuff, you can come out here with us, and the biggest reward, real quick, was when we were at Goldfield Hotel, and we had about 20, 25 people all witness a bunch of flying rocks picking up off the floor and actually hit one guy in the back. So I'm not saying it's a fun thing to see, but it's, just getting out there with us and actually experiencing what you see us do on television and see this stuff really happens.
Right, and Rolling Hills is a fantastic place. Every time we've been out there, we've got an amazing activity, shadow people activity, video, audio, personal experiences, so it's going to be a lot of fun. It will be an extreme ghost hunting event, and again, it's brought to you by your friends from the Ghost Adventures crew and Darkness Radio. You can go get that information at darknessevents.com, or you can go to darknessradio.com, and there's also a link if you go to ghostadventurescrew.com, get all the up-to-date information on the guys from Ghost Adventures. You can read about the show coming up, see all the information, and join on the forums. And you can find information on how to get tickets. So hopefully you'll join us. It's going to be limited. We're going to do the first 150 people that join up on this trip are going to go out with us and have a great time. And then we're going to also make day passes available, which is also something relatively new for us, where if you're not going to be there, you can come on out for just the day, hear the lectures, and be a part of that as well. So, Zach, much continued success. We're going to be watching for that show on October 17th, and we wish you a lot of luck, and then we'll be seeing you out at the Rolling Hills in November.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for tuning in. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show, and as has become now a staple on our Sunday night show, we've got with us the lovely Susan Cummins, who's going to do a book review. And Susan, you're kind of doing a follow-up to last week's show when we had the real-life ghost whisperer Hr.1 Winkowski on the air with us.
Yes.
You've gone out, you put her to the test, right? You bought the book, you're reading through the book. Okay, again, the name of the book is?
When Ghosts Speak, Understanding the World of Earthbound Spirits.
Okay. Now, go ahead and give us a little background on this book and tell us what your thoughts are.
Well, last week I had the pleasure of chatting with Marianne, and
Right.
as you know, I have 2 ghosts that reside with me, so I was sort of excited to pick up the book. She said there's lots of information in the book, and there's lots of aha moments for myself as well as other people, I'm sure, when they read it, because oftentimes when our keys are moved, the TV turns on by itself, we're thinking, am I going crazy or do I have a spirit? So she goes through how to recognize those key signs, those telltale signs as to, do you have a ghost? And then she goes into things that you can do to remove a ghost and things you can do to protect yourself after they're gone.
Now, did you find it helpful with the information that you were able to glean from the book?
It was helpful with respects to sort of confirming a lot of things that I sort of knew already. My motion sensor going on outside where my lights were coming on for no reason. Little things like that. I tried some of the things that she talked about. I'll have to be really honest with you. I did write a note to one of the spirits that is quite noisy and likes to touch and turn things off and on. But she's still with me. Now, one of the things that she said in the book is sometimes spirits don't want to go. Sometimes they're earthbound for a reason. And unless I can actually talk with them, unless you can have a conversation like Marianne can, how do you know why they're staying? And that's the part that I have a hard time with.
All right, well, that's a good point. Now, what did you feel with this? Now, if people are, and that's a good point, Tim, too, if we can't see this, we can't see the spirits ourselves, we can't talk to the spirits, and, we're leaning on people like Hr.1 Winkowski who will give us some advice, but it's not always perfect. That's why people like Marianne and David Farkas will go to these places either live or remotely to try to clear them and move these spirits on. That kind of leaves us in a quandary for people that are looking for help. Have you? Now, we've dealt with a lot of people, Tim, at the live events. Have you had anybody that's had an attachment that they've tried to get rid of on their own a few times and it hasn't vanished? Are you aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I know of people who have things in their homes that they can't get rid of, that they've tried once or twice but can't get rid of.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you think overall, Susan, if you're going to rate the book, would you think for helpful nature? Now, let's talk about, she tells some great stories in the book, right?
Oh, she really does share some great stories. One that I really enjoyed was about a couple who were best friends with another couple. They grew up together. They went to school together. They ended up marrying each other's best friends. They had a duplex. They lived in the same building with one another. Well, the wives decided they were going to buy these beautiful Rolex watches for their husbands as a gift. But when they purchased them, they liked the other one's box. They came in these lovely, pretty Rolex watch boxes, and they said, I like yours, and she says, I like yours, so they switched them. Well, the spirit that was attached to the watches, and she talks about attachments, why earthbound spirits stay, really got agitated, upset, and they noticed that they started having a lot of problems at home, a lot of arguments, a lot of feelings of uneasiness. And Marianne came in and found that this poor guy who was attached to these watches was going back and forth between the duplexes, just agitated and really upset that the watches were not in the correct boxes.
Oh, really? Because they're like serial numbered, right?
Huh?
Because Rolex, they're serial numbered with their box and with
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And he was really upset about it. Now, unless you could actually sit down and chat with this man, how would you know why he was there?
Wow. OCD spirits, Tim. That's the topic next week on Maury.
Heck yeah.
And just to let you know, if your grandmother wants to be buried with that amethyst ring, you better do it, because according to Marianne, they know if they're not buried with their precious jewelry.
And isn't that kind of sad, Susan, when you think about it, that even in death we're still petty and materialistic?
Yeah, well, she talks about a lot of the reasons why earthbound spirits decide to stay is they're attached to cars, they're attached to jewelry, objects, pieces of furniture. When you buy antiques, folks, when you're out there and you're looking at that flea market deal, make sure that you think twice before you bring it home, or say a blessing before you bring it in through the door. And she talks about blessings and things that you can do to protect yourself when you buy these sort of things.
All righty. Well, give me an overall. We got to roll up on this first one. What do you think? Out of 5 stars, how many would you give it?
Oh, absolutely a 4. The only
4
reason why
stars,
I didn't give it 5 is, if they speak to you and you ask them to leave and they don't go, what do you do next? It sort of leaves you going,
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And this is great, too. Now, you can check out our website at darknessradio.com. Over on the left side of the screen, you're going to see there's book reviews, movie reviews there. You can click on them. Tonight's book review will be posted by tomorrow on our website, so that way you can go read what Susan had to say. She'll show you the book cover. We'll have everything up there. And there's a place for you to recommend books to Susan. If you have paranormal books that are real ghost stories, or fun stuff like Dean Koontz, Stephen King books, things that might have slipped underneath the radar, you can send them her way, and she will review them on upcoming episodes. Thank you very much for joining us again, Susan.
Awesome. You guys have a fabulous evening.
Good. We'll look forward to talking to you next week. And thank you all for tuning in. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. Good evening. Welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Sitting across the board for me, Mr. Tim Dennis. We're here with you every Saturday and Sunday night from 9 p.m. to midnight Central Time. And again, remember, if you miss a show, don't worry about it. You can check out and see the podcast right on the website. Check out every episode right after it airs. As a matter of fact, within hours of it airing live, it's on our site and ready for you to download and listen to. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, whoever. Let everybody know about Darkness Radio. We're also going to be talking at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock hour. We're going to be with Mark and Debbie Constantino, the EVP specialists. We're going to be talking about EVP's electronic voice phenomena. We're going to hear some of their most startling sound bites that they're able to send over to us. We're going to talk to them about some of the experiences we've had at the live events we've done. So stick with us for that. Right now, though, as we're apt to do on Sunday nights, we're going to go over to our national news correspondent, Mr. Bill Murphy. Good evening, Bill.
Hello, Dave, and hello, Tim.
Thanks a lot for joining us here again, buddy.
It's always a pleasure.
So now we've got some news from around the United States you're going to share with us, right? What's our good lead-off story this week?
Well, this lead-off is going to actually close the loop on where we were last week when we talked about some of the structures that appear on the dark side of the moon.
Oh, very cool.
I was really curious on why structures would be there in the first place, so I started to do a little research.
Well, let's go back now. Last week you mentioned, was it the Apollo 11 and Apollo 13 mission launches?
8, 11, and 14.
8, 11, and 14.
Yeah.
And they claim that on the side of the moon that's not seen by us, there are what appear to be structures on the moon.
Yes.
Like large structures and piping and things like that, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And I wanted to see some of those objects that were being reported, so I started to Google it. And if anybody uses the phrase unidentified lunar objects, then you can see photographs that were released before they shut down the ability to get those photos out to the public. But now they're
Bill, I had a few people email me, and I don't know if you know this. I don't want to throw you under the bus here, but is it true people in Australia, they see the other side of the moon?
I don't believe they could, because the moon doesn't rotate on its own axis.
Okay, so they're still seeing what we're seeing here, so they get the same look of it and everything. Okay, because again, I had a few emails asking if indeed they're seeing the other side.
No, we all see the same man on the moon. So
okay.
That's the profile that shows up in the formations, but so it does not rotate. So you have to actually fly around it.
Okay.
So when we did have the Apollo missions and they were flying around it, and eventually there was 6 landings on the moon, by the way. But some of these photographs did make it out, and I did take a look at them, and they are unusual. The piping is easy to see. Some of the geometric structures are there. Some of the photos could be a result of matrixing.
Right.
When you look at it, however...
Now, explain to our listeners, too, that are new to this. What does matrixing mean?
Matrixing is the tendency of the mind to make sense out of randomness. And that randomness could be either in sound or in visual or in a scent or any of the normal 5 senses you may have.
Right, because like our mind, that's why you can look at clouds and you see a duck. or you see Jesus Christ appear on a piece of toast, right? Your brain is always looking for some recognizable pattern.
That is correct.
So matrixing is nothing more than your senses trying to fool you into seeing or experiencing something that may or may not really be there, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And then the long term for it is referred to as pareidolia. So it's the same thing as matrixing. So those terms are interchangeable.
All right.
So with that being said, I did take a look at some of the photos, and the cameras going back to the late 60s and early 70s didn't necessarily have the clarity that our high-res cameras have today. However, you can see some pretty clearly defined structures. Some of them look like almost factory-type buildings.
Really?
Large mechanical-looking wheels. But I was curious, well, why would anybody do this anyway? I mean, if it's not us, and if it's another civilization that at some point in time, why would it be done? So I kind of kept digging because at this point the story was beginning to intrigue me. And then by chance, I happened to run across a program that was on just last week. And that program was called An Experiment to Save the World. And that particular program was dealing with the energy crisis that we all face today. And in it, they were talking about, and I'll try to not delve too deep into the technology, but
Okay.
it's certainly, a lot of it goes beyond what we're currently capable of doing. That's why it kind of can lend itself to possible alien technology being involved. But regardless, it's fusion, nuclear reaction versus fission. Fission being the splitting of an atom, fusion being the joining of an atom. In either case, it releases a large amount of energy when you do it. The problem with fusion, which is the joining, is that it tends to corrupt the reactor itself, and it makes the entire reactor unstable, radioactive, and very dangerous. The problem is the materials that we have to join that are available here on Earth. And what happens is when the neutrons they get spun off when you join the atoms, and that's what's causing the radioactivity. However, on the moon, the moon has a high level of what's called helium-3. And helium-3 has one less neutron. So therefore you have half the amount of radioactivity capability when you are joining a helium-3 atom. So because the moon has a large degree of it, and here on Earth it's one of the most rare substances, there are actually proposals in place today to mine the moon for its dust and its rock and bring it back to Earth and use it for fusion energy.
So you're proposing maybe the structures that were there were doing the same thing at some point in time?
Perhaps.
Wow.
It's I'm just sort of connecting the dots here. I'm looking at the old photographs. I'm looking at recent energy crisis reports. I'm looking at, well, why do they have these somewhat industrial-looking structures on the moon? And I'm just sort of presenting to the news to your audience there, and we can kind of either come to our own conclusions or not. But, right now we're using hydrogen fission, and hydrogen is the most abundant substance in the entire universe. Helium-3 is one of the most rare. We rarely find it on Earth because our own atmosphere blocks it. It comes from solar flares because the sun is a giant fusion reactor. And it's perpetually regenerating energy, and it's joining atoms, and it's spinning off flares, and those flares travel through our atmosphere. They bounce off the Earth, but they do penetrate the moon, and they get embedded into the rock and the dust, and you can extract it fairly easily, the helium-3.
So we might have another energy source that we can start mining directly from the moon, and, eventually we're going to find out then if this is true, and they do have groups that are looking to start mining the moon. We're going to find out soon enough if there are structures there or if it's just a play of shadow and light, right?
Absolutely, and it may be for certain reasons related to that not all the facts are being revealed about what may be on the other side of the moon, but it kind of looks like somebody could have beat us to it, unless, like we sort of proposed at the last show, maybe we've already been there in a previously advanced human civilization. And in our current state of our scientific advancement, we have not yet developed the technology necessary to justify going to the moon and bringing back lunar material.
Well, let's take our first break here, Bill. We're going to be back with more. We'll be back with more news from around the United States, paranormal news. Again, check out, if you're not with us already and you're listening online, or if you're listening on your radio at home, you can also check out and be part of our live chat. Go to darknessradio.com. Over on the left side of the screen, click live chat, and you can join the room and talk with all the other paranormal enthusiasts out there. Be a part of it. Also, hit on the talk spot. Join the forums and tell us about your ghost stories. Tell us about your paranormal groups. Tell us your UFO and Bigfoot experiences and all of that. We'd love to hear from it. You're listening to Darkness Radio. Welcome back to 100.3 FM K-Talk. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. This is Darkness Radio, your paranormal source for all news. Hey, look at this, Tim. They're talking about the creature. Again, that looks just like the creature. I'm watching Fox News right here on the TV. And, Bill, I don't know if you've got access to Fox News, but they're showing that creature that washed up on the shore in Long Island, what they were calling the Manitowoc Monster. And I guess they're going to get more into, I guess they're calling in the Animal Disease Research Center.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're going to check it out. It may just be like a really bad-looking rabid raccoon that lost its hair or something crazy like Jeff Corwin was suggesting a few weeks ago. But if people aren't familiar with that, you can check out Manitowoc Monster. I guess it was in Long Island. A creature washed up on the shore. It looked like it had it was like a hairless dog with a pig kind of snout and these weird beak-like looking teeth. But he seems to think that the face had actually peeled away from the water, and all you were seeing were the canine teeth, which people were mistaking for being a beak. Anyway, we'll go back into your stories, but I just wanted to mention that if people were watching Fox News, there might be some updates on that story as well.
Very good. Maybe I'll have to follow up on that one for you, Dave.
Please do. I'd like to know what's going on with that.
Well, Dave, this next story was submitted by you, so I appreciate you for sending me this.
No, not a problem.
This is regarding a new comedy. It's a movie called Ghost Town, which is ironically happens to be the name of my first documentary.
Right.
Ghost Town. But this is when Ricky Gervais, if I'm pronouncing his last name properly.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais, I think, from The Office.
Gervais, yeah.
Yeah.
Gervais. Okay, so they were here in Los Angeles at the Roosevelt Hotel having a press junket, but they had to actually cut it short because they felt that the Roosevelt Hotel was, in fact, genuinely haunted. And they were there to talk about their comedy, but they instead felt they needed to cut the press conference short. When they were preparing for the photo shoot and the press conference, they were looking at Ricky in a full-length mirror when two assistants say that they saw a lady appear in the mirror as a ghostly apparition and then fade away.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's what they claim.
Well, that's interesting. You know, that's almost that harkens back to. Do you remember this urban legend, Tim, from 3 Men and a Baby, the movie?
The one about the baby that can't stop pooping?
No, there's the ghost that suddenly appears in the window of one of the scenes from. Are you familiar with that, Bill?
Not that particular one, but I have seen a number of outtakes from movies that were being shot, and
right.
they get paranormal images.
Well, what I thought was funny is that they released this news about this quote-unquote ghost that appears in the movie just as it's being released to home video back in the 80s, right? Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And there was all this rush. People were running out to buy it. And it turns out that it was nothing more than a cardboard cutout of Ted Danson from a previous scene that had fallen and was half visible behind the window. Because the stories that were out there were the fact that this kid had committed suicide or died in the apartment that they were filming, but they blew the lid off that. You know, conveniently, after they sold a couple million copies, they blew the lid off the fact that, well, it was all filmed on a soundstage. It wasn't even a real apartment building. And then they found the cardboard cutout, and if you look at it side by side, there's some people out there that have done really good research, and they've actually found the cardboard cutout and the picture of the childlike ghost appearing in the window, and they've put them next to each other, and you can see it's Ted Danson in a tuxedo with a top hat. Just a weird angle that they shot it at. But it's funny that a new Ghost Town movie comes out, and suddenly they're being plagued by ghosts during the press junket.
Well, skeptics are claiming it very well could be a publicity stunt. And,
right.
You know, it's I'm not surprised that those people put them under scrutiny for making those kind of claims. If they had photographs to back up what they were claiming, then we'd have something to take a look at ourselves.
Well, what is interesting, though, is we do know that to be a purported haunted location, right? Isn't it haunted by the ghost of Montgomery Clift and Marilyn Monroe?
Yes, those are the reports.
Right, and he's seen actually walking around blowing his trumpet, because I think he was a trumpet player, as I recall, because he played in, oh gosh, what's the name of that movie, From Here to Eternity? And they said that they've seen his ghost walking around with his trumpet, and he's playing the trumpet in the hallways. You know, just kind of an interesting little sideline. And then Marilyn's room is supposed to be crazy haunted there as well. So I know that there are some stories. It's just interesting that they would follow up on that. Well, that's a good story. What else do we have going on?
Well, another one we have going on. Hold on 1 second. I'll pull that one for you. And this one is from Tim Dennis and Michelle. So thank you, two, for submitting this one. This one's pretty interesting because it's kind of talking about something else that we picked up on earlier, is that people financing or hoaxing their paranormal research. So we started with the Bigfoot, talking about that previously.
Right.
This is talking about Dr. Colin Ross, who can send a beam of energy from his eyes. And he has applied for the $1 million James Randi Paranormal Challenge. And that particular challenge says that anyone who can show, under proper observing conditions, evidence of any paranormal, supernatural, occult power, or event, and the James Randi Educational Foundation and the person making the claim would agree upon the parameters of the demonstration, and they would pay the $1 million. To date, no one has been able to claim that prize. However, Western science has stated that it's been for at least 300 years that no energy of any kind is emitted from the eyes. And when you feel somebody staring at you, it's a coincidence or another form of misunderstanding, as they term it. However, with that being said, people that I know that have been part of the U.S. Armed Forces say that the stare effect, as it's referred to, is genuine. And when snipers get somebody in their sights, they have a limited amount of time to pull the trigger because the person who's being stared at, even through the sight, will detect that they're in the crosshairs and move out of the way. So sniper teams are two people. There's the spotter, and there's the actual sniper. So the spotter finds the person who's binoculars, tells the sniper where it is, sniper puts him in the crosshairs and pulls the trigger. So let's see if this fine doctor can claim the $1 million challenge. I hope he does.
Wow, so he claims he can actually shoot a laser-like beam from his eyes?
An energy beam is how I was referring to it. And so I did a little research to see, well, how is he proving this? What is the actual experiment? He says without any power source, he can activate a speaker, and it will make an audible sound. It will vibrate the cone.
Really?
He does it with the power of his eyes. So that guy has one heck of a stare, I take it. To do that.
No kidding you. Wow, that's crazy. All right, what else do we got going now?
Okay, this next one is actually really interesting. This is also from Michelle and Tim. This can be termed as synthetic ESP, extrasensory perception. And some of the highlights is and this also talks about the funding as well.
All right, now again, for our new listeners that are just kind of breaking into the paranormal world, now ESP is extrasensory perception, which means that we're able to sense things, not outside of sight, sound, smell, touch, right? All of that. It's that spider sensation, right? The spider sense from the old Spider-Man cartoons and everything. It's just that tingling and knowing something's about to happen. It's
being able to sense through a means other than what's hardwired into your central nervous system.
Right. Okay. Now, what's synthetic ESP?
Well, in synthetic ESP, let's talk about some of this. Well, first off, it's funded by the U.S. military, the U.S. Army in particular, and it's a $4 million grant. And the goal is to translate the thoughts of those that have brain injury into audible tones or onto computer screens in the form of text. So that's how it's kind of started off. But it's being sort of categorized as mind-reading technology, and that it could be misused to interrogate the enemy. And the Army says, well, that's not really possible because it requires active cooperation, which we really haven't always used active cooperation to obtain information,
right?
As we suspect. As a matter of fact, the Israelis, they're not using synthetic ESP, but they use technology to sort of read the thoughts of others. They use real-time voice stress analysis to determine the honesty of people that are crossing into their borders. Now, you can buy that kind of stuff, voice stress analysis technology, even on eBay. And you don't have to wire anybody up. It doesn't require any electrodes. You can record the voice. You can record a conversation and play it back, and it will determine the truthfulness of the person. But this is different from what the Army is doing. What they want to do, basically, if somebody is unable to communicate through any other means and be able to communicate with those around them, and the way they're doing it, they fit an electrode cap on a volunteer, and they get the individual to think of chosen words or any particular thoughts, and then they analyze the brainwave activity with an EEG, an electroencephalogram, and they hope that the thought recognition software will allow the computer to speak for a person or type out their thought, like I already mentioned.
Oh,
so it does
really?
require hardware to be affixed to the person, at least currently.
Well, now I noticed that there was a news story, and I think I even sent this to you maybe about 6 months ago, that they were working on a cell phone that this gentleman could communicate through with brain stem activity, right? It was something that he had attached to his brain stem, and the other person had the speakerphone on the cell phone, and he would actually just concentrate, and then the words would come out of the cell phone of what he was thinking. Is that similar to what this is going on, or am I off?
It's similar. In the case of this particular one, it's more brain mapping than anything. They want to see where the electrical activity is in the brain and tap into it with sensors and then translate those impulses into a form of communication. So it's a little bit different, to be honest with you, the way they're doing this.
Okay.
But it's nevertheless, it's pretty intriguing, and it's sort of similar to what Texas Instruments did a recent announcement of, and that's a collar that you wear that also reads nerve impulses. And that they actually have the software developed, so you think of the word, and then through speech synthesis, it'll speak the word.
Really?
That one I'm really intrigued with, and it's only a matter of time before people like Frank Sumpton and Bill Chappelle get one of those collars and then hack it for the paranormal community. I'm waiting on that one.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's go up with the next story, and then we'll take a quick break here.
Well, the next one, Dave, it's related. It's a little more sinister. It's some of the terminology kind of reveals where they could possibly be going with mind reading, or synthetic ESP, I should say, and that's black ops, also referred to as psychic warriors. And this is actually government research that goes back to the Stargate days. Now, officially, the public stance is Stargate was disbanded in 1995.
Right. Now explain Stargate, too, because unfortunately most people are only familiar with Stargate from the movie series.
Well, the difference between the fictional Stargate, which people actually physically transported to another place and or another time, Stargate, as it was actually put into practice, was using remote viewing to train individuals to be able to see and obtain information through non-physical means. And remote viewing is it's very tedious. You have to be very disciplined because remote viewing appears to be real, but the success rate is fairly close to the success rate when you have normal covert activities like spying or paying people off. It's about 30 to 35% accuracy. But that's pretty incredible when you think that you could remote view and even have, a degree of accuracy that is, approaching that kind of level.
And remote view, again, for new listeners, and I don't mean to keep beating the drum on this, but we want to include everybody in on this. Remote viewing is the opportunity, like you're there in California, Bill. You're able to get into kind of this Zen-like moment, right, where you're able to actually kind of see or sense what, if I was what they call the quote-unquote target, you might be able to sense music because I'm in a radio station. You might be able to sense the textile of the marble top of the desk that I'm sitting at. You may be able to feel a breeze if we have a fan going in here and see some of the things I might be able to see. Is that correct? What remote viewing basically is allowing you to kind of experience the location or the target's location?
Well, what you were referring to specifically are somewhat subsets of remote viewing. You were talking about assimilation and scanning, which have slightly different disciplines to follow. Remote viewing is intended solely to obtain information and data, documents, locations of hostages, locations of weapons, to actually see where things are geographically, like Google Map for the mind, basically. And the challenge with remote viewing, in trials, it does appear to work. But depending on your elevation, like how far you are away from the target, if you're too close to it. Say, for example, I'm looking for you, Dave, and I remote view into your coordinates, or what I believe is your coordinates. If I come down too low, I'm a centimeter off the floor. So I'm seeing carpet fibers, and I can misinterpret what that carpet fiber would be. If I come up 6 feet off the ground or 7 feet off the ground, maybe I'll see the top of you. I can see what you have. So it's very specific, remote viewing, to get the actual data they're looking for. You can end up coming up way above the building and not be able to identify anything because you're just too far up. So it's used mainly just for spy work. But that's not all that's being funded under Black Ops program. There's telekinesis, which is the ability to move, and that term is interchangeable with psychokinesis. In both cases, that's the ability to move objects with mind power alone.
Okay.
And I do actually believe that telekinesis and psychokinesis actually does happen. Sometimes I think it can happen on accident. We all know the 13-year-old, often it's a girl, and she's entering a volatile part of her emotional development, and then objects can move. So it can happen by accident. But I think a lot of people can actually do it but they can do it on a molecular level. It becomes subatomic, almost quantum.
Exactly. Well, we're going to take our break here real quick, Bill. We'll come back with more on that, and we're going to wrap up with the last 5 minutes of the show. You're listening to Darkness Radio. Welcome back to Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Across the board from me, Mr. Tim Dennis. And on the line with us, we have our national correspondent for the stories of the weird, Mr. Bill Murphy. Bill, we got about 2.5 minutes left here. Hit me with your last solid good story, and let's lock it up here.
Okay, well, Denver held a hearing on extraterrestrials, or actually a ballot initiative to create a commission to study the implications of UFOs and aliens. Now, this is an interesting story because the funding with this would come from the taxpayers, and that's a bit different from some of these privately funded research efforts that we talked about previously. And the man behind this proposal is Zak Bagans, and he had some what he claimed to be evidence that he showed. There is a video that's pretty interesting, what Jeff has shown, and it does appear to be an object that deforms in the sky and changes shape. And I contacted some friends of mine that are in Denver. Max Baxter and Brian Bonner of Rocky Mountain Paranormal, they were in the article as being opposed to the proposal. So I kind of wanted to get that local response and why they opposed it. And they highlighted some really interesting facts. First off, to have a special ballot initiative for this without associating any other initiatives would cost the local taxpayers $600,000. That's a lot of money to be spent for something that doesn't necessarily have a clear return on that kind of investment based on the evidence that's been so far submitted. The other thing that makes this one something that has to be scrutinized is the fact that the people that be recommended for the commission need to have specific experience, and the associates of Stan Romanek seem to have resumes that match that experience pretty good. So you have to wonder about the intent of doing an initiative like this. I don't know if it's for the greater public's good or if this is for personal gain. But regardless, this is something that I think maybe should be more on a federal level as opposed to a city level. So that is the last story. Right now, they weren't able to make a decision at that meeting, so their story is ongoing.
All right, very good. Now, and with this initiative, now explain exactly what is the initiative that they're hoping to do? Are they trying to protect this guy? I guess I'm having a hard time grasping what they want.
Well, according to Zak Bagans, that there is alien technology that'd be beneficial, but it's not being phrased as beneficial for mankind in particular, or communication with extraterrestrials would be good for the greater all. It's actually to study the implication that UFOs have on the citizens of Denver. So it's very specific. That is why, as it stands right now, they're not going to be moving forward, to the best of my knowledge, with establishing a commission and putting the initiative in front. There's more study that has to happen because I don't think the case has been compelling enough that Mr. Romanek has made to justify that kind of expenditure. He really didn't go into a lot of details except to say that he has evidence that we are being visited. Now, I'm curious about being visited by aliens, as we all are, but you have to know what the return is. Now, the return is, hey, here's how you can mine the moon and you can power the Earth for the next, 2,000 years. Okay, that's a reason to move forward.
Yeah, no doubt.
But so far we haven't had that.
All right, well, Bill, thank you again, as always. We appreciate you being on with us and sharing the news of the weird. And remember, if you want to give story ideas to Bill, you can go to darknessradio.com, click on the news desk, find Bill there, and then you can send over some story ideas. As you hear, he will use them on the show as well. Make sure you stay tuned. We're going to be back at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock, with our guests, Mark and Debbie Constantino. They are EVP specialists. They're going to share some hair-raising EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, with us. We're going to take your calls so you can call in and ask Mark and Debbie questions. Jot down this number. Stay tuned.